Let's start with 1 year old and slowly work our way towards 1000-year-old empire. The first Mexican Empire, 1822 till 1823. In the early 19th century, Mexico, once a part of a Spanish vast empire, was under serious pressure from independence movements. From 1810 to 1821, the country went through brutal wars trying to break free from Spanish rule. Early on, leaders like Miguel Hidalgo, Jose Maria Morelos, and Vicente Corriero led the fight. Miguel and Morelos were captured and executed by the Spanish. But things went a little differently for a man named Agustin de Iturbide. Iturbide, who came from an aristocratic family and was an officer in the Spanish Royal Army, saw the Spanish crown starting to fall apart in 1820, so he made a bold move. He joined forces with the Vicente Corriero and turned against the Spanish government. Just a year later, in 1821, the Spanish Royal Army was defeated and Mexico gained its independence. At first, the plan was to make Mexico a constitutional monarchy, with a Spanish prince as a king. But since Spain refused, Iturbide decided to take the crown himself. On May 21, 1822, he declared himself Emperor Augustin I. But like many other emperors, Iturbide quickly turned authoritarian. He dissolved the Congress, built a fancy royal court through lavish parties, and demanded heavy taxes from the people. Normally, it takes a while before people start rebelling, but not in Mexico. Just 6 months after taking the throne, on December 2, 1822, General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, along with few other officers, launched a rebellion, and the people joined them almost immediately. As a result, on March 19, 1823, Iturbide officially left the throne and was sent into exile in Italy 2 months later. After the fall of the empire, Mexico became a republic, with Guadalupe Victoria serving as its first president. But Augustin's story didn't end there. A year later, he thought to himself that Mexico was at the risk of being colonized again by Spain. So he came back, but that was a big mistake. The Mexican Congress had already declared him a traitor, and just 3 days after his return, he was arrested and executed. Let's talk about the Swedish Empire, from 1611 till 1721. Back in early 15th century, Sweden was a part of Kalmar Union, a political union with the Denmark and Norway. But Swedes were getting sick of being under Danish rule, so massive uprising broke out all over Sweden. Eventually, in 1523, those revolts paid off when a man named Gustav Vasa declared Sweden's independence and became a king. But at that point, Sweden wasn't an empire yet. Compared to its powerful neighbors, it was still pretty backward. That all changed about 18 years later when Gustav Adolf, aka Gustav II Adolf, became a king in 1611. Just like another famous Adolf, he totally transformed his country. Under his rule, Sweden went from struggling kingdom to a serious empire. First off, he modernized the military. Before that, Sweden's army was feudal. Noblemen brought their own troops and there was no real training or standard equipment. Gustav changed all that. He built a proper professional army where soldiers got paid and trained. He also introduced smarter and more efficient tactics, so much so that even big empires started copying him. One of his boldest ideas was using small, fast, super organized units instead of using slow and bulky armies of that time. His troops could move and strike quickly, which gave them a serious edge in battle. But to build this kind of war machine, Gustav needed a strong economy. At that time, Sweden's economy was based on farming and exaggerated taxes, so he restructured it, created a centralized tax system that was more fair and effective, boosted metal production, and made Sweden self-sufficient in weapons manufacturing. And well, let's be real, anytime a leader builds a powerful army, they end up using it somewhere. Gustav joined the 30 Years' War, a messy mix of religious and political conflict between Catholics, power like the Holy Roman Empire and Spain, and Protestant states like German regions, the Netherlands, and eventually Sweden. Officially, Gustav joined the war to protect German Protestants, but we all know there was more to it. Still, he jumped in and crushed it. With his well-trained modern army, he won battle after battle. But hey, no one is invincible. On a foggy day in 1632, in what's now Eastern Germany, the Battle of Lutzen began. Gustav faced off against Wallenstein, the top general of the Holy Roman Empire. He followed his usual strategy, quick attack, catch the enemy off guard. And it actually worked. He pushed their lines back. Gustav fought side by side with his troop on the front line, but the fog was so thick that no one could see much of anything. Then a bullet hit Gustav in the arm. He tried to retreat on the horseback, but it was too late. He got surrounded by the enemy soldiers. He fought bravely, but with a wounded army and no backup, he didn't stand a chance. Gustav region marked the peak of Swedish Empire. After Gustav, you can basically draw a downfall graph for the Sweden's power. After him, his daughter took the throne, but since she was only 6 years old, a regency council led by one of Sweden's greatest statesmen, Axel Oxenstierna, ran the country until she came of the age. Axel did a solid job leading Sweden through the rest of the war. Eventually, Christiana came to power herself, and yeah, you can probably guess what's happened. She couldn't run the country and got tired of being queen, so she left the country in 1654. Her cousin Charles X took the throne and went to war with Poland. This pushed Sweden to its greatest territorial reach. But when Charles XII took over, everything started to fall apart. Charles XII started the Great Northern War and went back into Poland. Things were going well until Russia stepped in. Sweden suffered the crushing defeat at Battle of the Poltava, and from that point on, it was all downhill. By 1721, under the authority of Nistid, Sweden officially gave up most of its overseas territories to Russia, and that is the end line for the Swedish Empire. In the late 13th century, the Seljuk Empire of Rome in the Anatolian region was falling apart thanks to Mongolian invasion and internal uprising. Around this time, in the year 1299, Osman, son of Ertugrul, broke away from Seljuks and declared independence. Instead of attacking the neighboring Turkish tribes, Osman focused on the real enemy, Byzantine Empire. He began expanding into European territory, and those early conquests laid the foundation for the Ottoman Empire. After Osman, his son took the throne and captured Bursa, making it the capital of the new empire. Then came Murad I, who created the military unit you've definitely heard of, the Janissaries. These were Christian boys taken from their families and trained from childhood, under harsh conditions, sometimes even torture, to obey only the Sultan. Eventually, this allied force became one of the empire's most powerful tools. The Ottomans kept expanding until Mehmed the Conqueror pulled off something no one thought was possible. He crushed the Byzantine Empire and took Constantinople, aka Istanbul. He moved the Ottoman capital there, making a new area for the empire. Years passed, and then came the reign of the Suleiman the Magnificent, the man who turned the Ottomans into true global superpower. Under Suleiman, the empire reached its peak, stretching west to Transylvania, Wallachia, and Moldavia, and east to Egypt and Baghdad. During his rule, the Ottomans became the #1 naval power in the Mediterranean and Red Sea. This area also saw intense rivalry between the Ottomans and the Iberian Empire, Spain and Portugal. They clashed in religion. The Ottomans saw themselves as a champion of the Islam, while the Iberians backed Catholicism. Trade routes like Mediterranean, India and China, and of course in the battlefield. But their power was pretty evenly matched. Neither could truly beat the other. Suleiman's time was the peak of the empire, and you know what came after the peak? That's right, decline. Though the empire stayed powerful for a while after Suleiman, the sign of decay started to show. In 1571, the Battle of Lupante happened, a major defeat for the Ottomans. Their entire navy was almost wiped out, about 200 ships. They lost 3,000 men and their top commander was killed. Just imagine that. After this loss, the Europeans realized, oh shit, the Ottomans aren't invincible. And that was just the beginning. The second failure of the siege of Vienna, the loss of military dominance, the slowing of the Ottomans' war machine, and even worse, falling behind in the science and industry, rising independence movements, corruption at court, and lack of strong sultans, and finally joining the World War I on the wrong side. All of these added up, and in 1924, after 6 centuries of existence, the Ottoman Empire officially came to an end. In 395 AD, the Roman Emperor Flavius Theodosius died and left his massive empire to his 2 sons. But the brothers couldn't get along, so what they did, they split the empire in 2. Honorius became the emperor of the Western Roman Empire, and Arcadius ruled the Eastern Roman Empire. And just like that, the Byzantine Empire was burned. Like many other empires, Byzantium began expanding its territory, from the Caucasus and the Middle East to North Africa and parts of Europe. Quick question, weren't those European lands part of Western Roman Empire? Good point. Since the Western Roman Empire wasn't as strong as its Eastern brother, thanks to barbarian invasion and bunch of other problems, it only lasted 81 years and collapsed in 476. AD. After that, the Byzantines tried to take back the western territories. And for a while, they actually did a good job. During the reign of the Justin I, they managed to conquer Italy and parts of southern Iberia. Justin's area was the golden age of Byzantium. With the help of his legendary general, Belisarius, he pulled off huge military victories. But Byzantium didn't just win wars, it also saw major achievements in architectures, like the constructions of Hagia Sophia and the massive walls of Constantinople, aka Istanbul. But here's the thing, every great empire have a rival. For Byzantium, it was the Sassanid Empire. These two were head-to-head for nearly 400 years over regions like Anatolian, the Caucasus, and the Middle East. Sometimes Sassanids won, sometimes the Byzantines did, but neither could completely take out the other. In 602 AD, the Sassanids launched a massive war that lasted 26 years. They were doing great at first, conquering tons of lands, but when a new Byzantium emperor, Heraclius, took command personally, everything changed. The Byzantines struck back hard, the Sassanids lost, and the borders went back to how they were. But the war had drained both empires, and right after that, Muslim Arab armies, young, fired up, and full of energy, attacked both empires. The Sassanid Empire collapsed completely, and Byzantium started to weaken. The Arab invasion were massive blow. Byzantium lost most of its eastern territories, which were the key economic centers. But thanks to smart moves like team system, they managed to hang on. Under Emperor Vasily II, the empire bounced back. Science and art flourished during that time too. That good period didn't last long. After Vasily's death, weaker emperors took over. The result? A crushing defeat by the Seljuk Turks at the Battle of Manzikert in 1071, which cost Byzantium most of Asia Minor. But an even bigger blow was coming. During the Fourth Crusade in 1204, Crusaders themselves captured and looted Constantinople. Byzantium was turned into Latin Empire, but Byzantium didn't give up. 57 years later, they took Constantinople back. Still, it wasn't the same empire anymore. Years of civil war, economic trouble, and growing pressure from Ottomans pushed Byzantium to the edge. And finally, in 1453 AD, with the fall of Constantinople to the Ottomans, the Byzantine Empire came to an end forever.